with new confirmation of the escalating criminal probe into the Trump organization. So here's what we know right now. One, the New York DA is preparing these charges. That fact is not even in dispute. Donald Trump's own corporate lawyers confirming today they've been advised some kind of charges are coming. Two, those charges are coming fast. This could be next week or as soon as this week. Three, as a final step, before any charges, today is the legal deadline for the Trump organization to make any final arguments for why the DA should not indict. The Washington Post reporting on that legal process. And four, there are several signs that this case will begin with narrow financial charges about tax evasion and benefits, and not going after Donald Trump himself yet. A top Trump organization lawyer, Ron Fischetti, speaking out on what DA Vance told them today, that these indictments will focus on benefits and alleged tax evasion and not go after Donald Trump, at least in the main first round. Now that suggests, if not Trump, that there will be either indictments of other people, like the CFO, or indictments of the company or part of the company, or both. Indict the company, indict the people, indict both, and according to this initial leak, not indict the former president. Now, this lawyer is also publicly using this time speaking out today at this inflection point to criticize the narrow approach by the DA, saying the DA's case, after all this, sounds like small ball, and, quote, it's crazy, that's all they had. Now, as a media strategy, it may just be an effort to frame whatever comes out as minor, regardless of the facts. Any indictments that do hit the top of the former president's company are a big deal legally, as well as for other reasons. Any indictment of the Trump organization or a big part of it itself is a huge deal. It's Donald Trump's lifeline. It's his business. Now, here on The Beat, we first started reporting on June 2nd that a likely legal avenue would be a corporate indictment hitting the company or part of it. And that still puts pressure on the top executives and potentially on Donald Trump, especially if it spurs legal cooperation. And after June 2nd, over the past few weeks, regular viewers may recall, we did a different report here before newspapers started reporting on this corporate prospect. We reported on just how it works when you indict a company or part of a company, and we heard from a very relevant person, Cy Vance's former deputy in this office that will make the call. He even wrote the guidelines still used today in New York on whether to indict an organization or part of it. And he told us there is a strong case to indict the company or part of it. Now, as for other executives, many sources point to the Trump organization's CFO, Alan Weisselberg, as the most likely person who could be the first indicted. And he's reportedly refusing to cooperate in the probe. If there are charges next week or this week, well, that changes everything for him. He will face a major decision, start talking about everything he knows that goes on in this company, or risk going to prison. And he has very little reasons to think that his unindicted boss, the former president, would or can help him in that spot. If you are indicted, the only help you can get is from the prosecutors who have all this leverage, or a jury if you have the evidence to convince them you're not guilty. So you take this all together, some of it is familiar because you've probably heard about it, just as you've heard about alleged financial misconduct by Donald Trump throughout basically his adult life. Whenever you hear about that, remember what you're hearing. It's not just about Donald Trump as a person, although most people, when accused of tax evasion or financial misconduct, most people who don't own and run companies of some kind, it's only one avenue. It's what they did. But Donald Trump, thanks to his father and other financial details that I'm not going to get into all at this moment, well, Donald Trump does everything through the business, through the company. And people know that. It's called the Trump Organization. It's a family business, very much literally. So when we hear that this company may be indicted itself or part of it for tax evasion, that itself, of course, does connect back to Donald Trump. And the second piece, which I'm about to get into with my experts, does relate to something the Trump lawyer said, which, again, if you want to look at this clearly and fairly, you can't dismiss any evidence. You take it all in. It would be true that after this much investigation and going all the way to the Supreme Court to get the tax returns, if the only thing charged is avoiding fringe benefit taxes for people other than Donald Trump, it would be true that narrow case doesn't sound like a lot. But we are covering a grand jury process. And if you've been with me here on The Beat or watching the news or watching MSNBC, I bet you remember the Mueller grand jury. Do you remember how it started? with an indictment of a guy named George Papadopoulos, and then other indictments. And it took months and months longer in that very effective prosecution. People across the spectrum credited Mueller for that. It took months and months to get to more senior people and then get to the campaign chair, Paul Manafort, and then get to Roger Stone at the end with stuff that was Russia adjacent. I can't tell you where we're going. I can only report on these avenues as we've been trying to do, but I can tell you that the Trump lawyer would be onto something if any next round of charges are the only ones. And he might be underestimating exactly how big this could get if these early charges are an effort to flip Mr. Weisselberg or put pressure on the corporate entities and ultimately go after the rest of what they found